Okay, so I just want to walk through some of the steps we use to grade the interim assessment, the Smarter Balance Consortium interim assessment. So after administering the assessment, there's a couple things you're going to need to grab off the internet. One of them is the reports, and the new reporting system here called Airways. We can just grab that from the Comprehensive Assessment Program website. And when you're here, you're going to select, these are different assessments that I've proctored. I'm going to look at this one. And at this point, you want to sort by classes, probably. So I'll just choose third period. And you're going to use the print button right up here. And then you're just going to see this sort of vague above standard thing. You want to choose summary and item scores. That'll give you the points and correct answers per question. We want to download a comma-separated value file. You may want to, let's see here. I think, let me back up here. I think you probably want to try and sort these by alphabetical order. For some reason, the default is sorted in reverse alphabetical order. So you want to probably hit this button first, so then you have them in alphabetical order. It will probably match your grade book, and then hit the print button. All right, we're going to choose download comma separated value. You want to hit the summary and item scores up here so that you have all the points, and confirm to download. We're going to go ahead and open with Excel. You can save them and then open this later. In fact, you might want to save them and go back and do all your periods at the same time, but in this case, let's just open it for now. Great. We tell it that Excel is going to open this file. I guess that's good to note, right? If your computer doesn't, like mine, doesn't understand that Excel should be the default application. See, speaking in reverse alphabetical order, here we go. Okay, and you're going to get this. And this is kind of cool. When you're looking online, it's really useful to see these things, the 5 items which students perform the best on, the 5 items on which students perform the worst. But if we're just going to put this, use this for grading, we're just going to delete these things and focus on just the total items. This assessment had 14 questions, and these are the scores on those 14 questions. So that's one thing you'll need from the internet. The other thing you probably will need is the standards alignment, which someone at Seattle Schools did for us. So I'm going to log into Schoology here and go to groups. And if you haven't joined the middle school math teachers or whatever kind of math teacher you are, you should do that. That's the group you want to belong to. And if you look in here under resources, oh, I take that back middle. So another way of doing that, the simpler way of doing that, I guess, would be looking at the resources button here on the left. Middle school math assessment, I believe. I'm going to fish around here for a second. I'm going to 6th grade. Yep, Smarter Balanced, and the Smarter Balanced interim assessments. This is the interim breakdown is what we're looking for. So we could go back and go through that again. I just had a second to think about it. So under resources, you're going to go to middle school math assessments, choose your grade level. Under Smarter Balanced, the Smarter Balanced interim assessments, and again the item breakdown. And it will open up in the browser, but you want to choose the download, right? So you want to grab this and download it to wherever, okay? And I've already got my 6th grade one open. It looks like this, right? And here you can see the different interim assessments that are offered by SBA. I chose this one, right? This is the one we're working with, those same 14 questions. And I just copied and pasted it over here, and I thought it was a good idea to kind of color code them by standard, right? Because your grade book will probably have the individual standards on it. So we wanted to be able to identify all those that are, associated with Geometry Standard 1. I've highlighted them in yellow. Geometry Standard 2, I've highlighted them in blue, that sort of thing. Okay, and then we're going to basically copy this and use it in the other spreadsheet. So I just made a copy of that, and we're going to move back to the original one, right? So what I'm going to do is try and insert this here so that while I'm grading, I keep an idea of what question is with what standard. So I'm going to insert the copied cells, and that's a bad idea actually. Let me I'm going to go ahead and insert just blank rows here. Sorry, I should have done this ahead of time. So above the student's name, I'm choosing the insert menu, and I'm inserting rows. And then I'm going to head here I'm going to try and align this with question number 1, and I'm going to paste those cut cells. All right, so here's question 1, lines up with question 1, question 2 lines up with question 2, and so on. The next thing I want to do is try and get these to group together so I can put the questions, all G1 questions, standard G1, together so that I can put a single grade in the gradebook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to go over here to the first row here, and I'm going to insert the cut cell. And that way I'm not pasting over anything, I'm not copying and pasting, I'm just inserting them. So again, I'm going to cut another yellow one, and I'm going to select this and insert it. And so you see this question 1 here just keeps getting moved to the left, and all the yellow ones are getting put together. So I'm going to cut, I'm going to pick the green one again, and this will just insert it in the column to the right. I'm going to cut, and I'm going to insert. And this is a little tedious, but we're just going to keep doing this. I'm doing all the G2 questions, and so on, right? Until they're all, oops, I could have messed that one up. I'm going to insert cut cells, not paste, because otherwise you erase the other question. So cut and insert. And then this is incredibly tedious because you can imagine this is just one of my classes, right? You want to repeat this activity for all of your other classes. And but the idea is, in the end, you might find it to save you a lot of time. You won't have to go through every individual paper and grade them by hand. Right, so I screwed that one up again. I didn't want to erase. I erased that. I overwrote that. I pasted right on top of it. I want to insert to the left. And the good news is, if you just keep doing this, then the last couple items line up here. There we have. So these are all standard 1. These are all standard 2, standard 3, and so on. All right, so just do that a whole bunch of times, once for every class, and you'll have this kind of spreadsheet, right? Another quick idea here is that if you choose this cell here, next to the students' names, I usually can delete the ID numbers too. If you choose this cell here, to the left of the student names and to the left of, or to the right of the student names and to the left of the standards, and choose the window button, you can freeze the panes here, and that way you can keep the question numbers and kind of get the student name. And as you're going through the gradebook, it's really handy to say, okay, question 2, and then just highlight, maybe say Vincent, and be able to see what question it is and what score it is, and then be able to scroll down to the next student, and be able to scroll down to the next student, and be able to scroll down to the next student, all while keeping these numbers up here visible. So with that in mind, I'm just going to jump to the spreadsheet that's already done, right? So here's one that has all of my classes on it, right? And you see down here at the bottom, there's tabs for 3, 4, 6, 7. And one way to do that, when you have these individual sheets, let me switch back over here. This individual sheet, it's called Report, that I downloaded for my, I don't know what it was, 3rd period class. You can kind of collect them all in a single spreadsheet by just grabbing the tab from this individual and dragging it down to another one, and then you can collect them all in one place. That's pretty handy. So again, with your individual sheets, this is blank now, but when you download those individual classes, you can just grab a sheet and drag it here to a separate spreadsheet, and you can collect all these tabs, right? So then you have all of your classes in one place, and you're pretty much good to go. From that point on, we developed a rubric, that assigned sort of a point value. Like, so a simple approach would be like, oh, there are 4 simple questions here, and so we'll assign 1 point to each of them. You know, 1 question correct would be a level 1, 2 questions correct would be a level 2, 3 questions correct would be level 3, and so on. They get more complicated here if you have more or less. You have to look at the rubric. And the other thing to keep in mind is that there are a variety of difficulty levels. So let's jump back here to the assessment screen, and let's just take a look at Vicente here. What we want to do is notice that some questions are worth 2 points, right? The maximum points are 2. And then on the other hand, questions sort of tend to increase in difficulty. So if we click on, let me back up a quick sec. If you just click on a question number, it'll show you the question itself. But here it'll show you the item difficulty, right? Moderate seems to be the starting point. I'm having trouble highlighting just this one row. Anyway, the item difficulty is moderate here. And that seems to be the most basic level. And then some of the other questions, if we jump up here, you'll see that item difficulty is, well, in this case, difficult. So you can assign more or less points to a question based on its difficulty. These questions that are worth 2 points generally have 2 parts. You'll see 2 answer boxes here. It's also worth noting that if you click on the student's score, you can actually see their responses. You know, there's no way to see the work that students did on scratch paper here, but you can see their responses. And oftentimes you can, modulate or adjust your points based on that. For example, let's look at question 11 here. There were 2 questions here, and often students wrote in the second part 48, and the system was marking it incorrect. And that's because 48 was the correct answer in inches, and the computer's looking for the correct answer in feet. So if the students didn't take the extra step of converting inches to feet, it's marked wrong. And I thought, whatever, like if I noticed that a student was being marked incorrect or losing a point on this, I would just dive in here, and in this case, Vicente didn't do that, right? He didn't get the correct answer. But let's take a look at, say, I don't know, Ronan here, see how he did. Here's that 2-point question. He got 1 point on it. And if we take a look at it, I will notice that he wrote 48, which would be correct in inches, and I decided to give kids that point. So anyway, I'm just pointing out that you can check their responses in the system also. So 2 things, checking or assigning point values to the questions based on their difficulty, whether the question is difficult or not, or moderate, and then being able to check their answers and seeing if you want to go with an answer that is correct in some sense. And then from here we just gave the kids a level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4, and that's what we came up with. This is our first shot at using the Smarter Balanced interim assessments, and I have to say grading went pretty smoothly, and it feels fairly accurate. I have to say these things here are very generous, right? Like you see, this student is at or near standard, having only answered 1, 2, 3 questions correctly. So our grading system is going to be maybe a little more fine-tuned than that, and I'm just hoping that the final assessment is just as generous. This person was, I was surprised to see that an at or near standard was given when there's only 3 questions being answered. Anyway, that's things to be aware of when you're grading the Smarter Balanced assessment. Interim assessment, sorry.